Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Georgio, your friendly neighborhood YouTuber. And yes, Beyond Wrestling, the ultimate wrestling talk show where we talk about wrestling's, past, present, and future. And it's back, and today's episode is featuring a really good, interesting topic, and it'll be titled Favorite Wrestling Tag Teams. I don't believe I touched on my favorite wrestling tag teams, and as I watch Raw, which I haven't been watching too much of it because it's just been reruns and recaps or whatever you want to call it. It's been kind of stale. The tag team matches are just repetitive, and to me, tag team wrestling should never be boring. And some of my favorite tag team matches were basically, during the Attitude Era, mainly NWA, National Wrestling Alliance back in the 80s. And of course, WCW has some really great tag team matches. Every once in a while, on the main roster, we'll get a good tag team match, but most times it's just guys or girls thrown together and they have no real in-ring chemistry. And to me, I think that's really what is missing from tag team wrestling, is wrestlers who also have good characters, who can work, who kind of feed off of each other's energy and bring something crazy and great storytelling to the show. Because back in the day, tag team wrestling pretty much held together the wrestling card, because we didn't have, before we had the cruiserweights, it was the great tag team matches that fans were excited about, like the Von Erichs versus the Freebirds, those are two really awesome tag teams right there. Unfortunately, I grew up in the 90s, and those tag teams like the Von Erichs and the Freebirds, they weren't around as much. But I remember hearing stories from my mom and my dad and some of my family members as they watched the Von Erichs and Freebirds, and these two teams fought each other pretty much every night or every show that they had in WCCW. And those two tag teams alone made wrestling big and popular. Before Hulkamania and all of that, those guys were selling out arenas, and they had the great characters, unique entrance themes. They had the girls going wild. And also, you can't talk about favorite wrestling tag teams without talking about the Midnight Express, because those guys were true entertainers. Robert Gibson, that guy was like the ultimate babyface. He could build sympathy, from the fans with no problem, and he legit looking like he's about to die, in the ring, as Jim Cornette has stated in some of his awesome podcasts, And I think he was managing one of them, or the Rock and Roll Express, one of them. I think it was the Rock and Roll Express that Jim Cornette was managing. Those were really great legendary tag teams before my time, but I know of how great they are. And but I'm going to talk about some of my favorites from the 90s, and I got to start with the Road Warriors, because I remember seeing them first, in my brief little stints of watching wrestling. I definitely remember seeing the Road Warriors just go out there and beat the crap out of everyone. And the thing is, they didn't have a lot of moves, which I've talked about in a previous episode of Beyond Wrestling. Is some of our favorite wrestlers they never really had a whole lot of moves. They had maybe 4 or 5 signature moves, and of course they would switch up between when and where they use those moves, and occasionally they'll pull out a new one. But the Road Warriors, we loved them for their intensity and how they just went to the ring and beat up people, and they had the cool face paint. I mean, what else was there not to like about them guys? They had great characters. Their promos were, very intense, straight to the point, and I really enjoyed them. DX, which, I liked Shawn Michaels and Triple H together. They were really great, but I don't know if we saw them team up as much. I know they were interfering in each other's matches and stuff, but they were great. The Steiner brothers. Yeah, man, if we're gonna talk about tag team wrestling, we gotta talk about those guys too. Steiner brothers, they had the look, I like when Rick Steiner would come out there doing the little hoot hoot sound or whatever the fuck he was saying. That was so cool. That those guys were great and very entertaining, especially Scott Steiner, like when he turned heel and everything. But even when he was with Rick Steiner, they were very entertaining, and I just enjoyed watching them. They were just perfect. The Four Horsemen, which that they had many different members, but yeah, Arn Anderson, Ric Flair, whenever they would team up, would be great. But I think Arn Anderson teamed up with Tully Blanchard a whole lot during the Four Horsemen, stint. And of course they had Chris Benoit, and I think Steve Mongo met Michael. They had Dean Malenko, which I don't know if we saw those guys really team up as much. I know they represented the Four Horsemen in wearing the shirts and stuff to their matches, and they also had that really cool entrance theme with the little guitar, and the t-shirts were so cool. I don't know, it's probably hard to find the original Four Horsemen t-shirts from the WCW days, but if you guys have one of those or find ones, you'll see what I'm talking about. They're really great. And I like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash together, the Outsiders, the Wolfpack as you may call them. They were always fun to watch too, with the Too Sweet, and they were just cool, especially Razor Ramon or Scott Hall. He just had the swagger, and I think he pretty much, made it cool to be a heel, and fans were actually cheering the heels and stuff. The NWO was like this rap gang. It's like, they're like this cool rap group that everybody wanted to be a part of. And we've already heard a crop load of stories about how that faction was and everything. But when it was like just when Hall and Nash and Hogan and stuff like that, just the original people, it was perfect. And another top favorite tag team of mine, especially from the 90s, was Harlem Heat, Booker T and Stevie Ray. I'm telling you guys, these two guys right here were the first, I would say, very popular black tag team in wrestling. I know we had Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson or Rocky Soulman Johnson, and they were in the WWF. Yes, it was said like that. Back when Vince McMahon Sr. Was running that company before Vince McMahon Jr. took over. We had that black tag team. But the thing is, they didn't stay together long. That tag team did not last as long as a lot of people would hope. But they did great because they were the first black tag team champions in wrestling, which was a huge deal. And since then there hasn't been really many great black tag teams. I know we got the New Day right now, but they're kind of a comedy act. Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas was a serious black tag team, and people loved them. They had charisma, and they could go in the ring. They weren't just some goofballs. You know what I'm saying? They were real deal right there. You took them serious when they came to the ring. Unfortunately, egos were getting involved, and you know how wrestling can be very cutthroat. Tony Atlas definitely went into depth in some shoot interviews on MWF Boston Wrestling YouTube channel, and he talks about why that tag team didn't last as long as it could have. But back to Booker T and Stevie Ray as Harlem Heat, they had the coolest entrance theme I think of any tag team in wrestling in the 90s. Until of course the NWO came along with their Wolfpack song and the original NWO song. But before that, those guys had a really cool entrance theme, and I love watching them come to the ring. They had the crowd hype. They had the little raising the roof little taunt that they did. Booker T did the spinneroonie. Stevie Ray had that great power, and which complemented Booker T's athleticism very well. And the thing is, Booker T was doing a lot of athletic things for a big guy. Booker T was not no small dude. He was very tall. He was 6'3", but he looked like he was taller than that. But yeah, Booker T was very entertaining, and everyone loved those guys. They won a whole bunch of tag team championships over there, But of course, Booker T went on to become a great singles wrestler, and I think him and Stevie Ray, they got their own wrestling school right now in Houston, and it's called Reality of Wrestling, where they're training a lot of great upstart, wrestlers right now. Amber Moon came from that wrestling school, so I couldn't do this video without mentioning Harlem Heat, man. You guys definitely go check out some Harlem Heat matches. I'm telling you, they're really great. Check out those Von Erich matches, modern day tag teams. Now this one is going to be kind of tricky because there's not as many great modern tag teams. I know NXT, for example, NXT in my opinion got some of the best tag teams, some of the best workers right now in WWE. And I like the Undisputed Era. Those guys, all those guys in that group are just beyond talented. They got that cool entrance thing that it's kind of like a modern day version of the NWO, but that it's their own thing, And I love when Kyle O'Reilly comes out to the ring doing the little air guitar thing when he had the tag team championships and stuff, which I think those guys should definitely get those belts back. I really like what they're doing. I'm trying to see, because I want to keep it a little current too. The Revival were really great tag team wrestlers over in NXT, and then when they went to the main roster, they're being treated like crap. They're being relegated to nothing, and it's really bad. It's really unfortunate because those guys can work, and those are some guys you want on top in the tag team division. It's really unfortunate that happened to them. DIY, with Johnny Gargano and what's his name, Tommaso Ciampa, really great guys. They complement each other so well. And at one point, you didn't think they were gonna win the tag team championships, but they did. They got them. But my only fear is I don't want them to go to the main roster and be treated, like crap. Also the Young Bucks. I like the Young Bucks. People say what they want about those guys, but they're entertaining. They have their Being the Elite, YouTube channel and everything. I like the Bullet Club with what's his name? Golly, Tonga. That guy's really good. He's got some great talent. The Usos, Usos, Brothers of Destruction, Undertaker and Kane, golly, it's just so many. I even like when The Rock teamed up with Mick Foley for that brief stint. That was pretty cool too. But yeah, you guys, it was just me going down a little memory lane, sharing with you what I loved about tag team wrestling, what my favorite tag teams were. And the thing is, it wasn't just a bunch of rest holds. These guys kept the pace of the match and the crowd's attention really well. And so Let me know what your favorite wrestling tag teams are in the comment section below. I will gladly come through and give you a bunch of hearts on your comments and reply back like I always do. Stay tuned because we got a lot of content coming to this channel this week. Or at least some good content. And stay tuned for more Beyond Wrestling episodes. These will be releasing every Monday of each week, besides Christmas, because Christmas is gonna be on a Monday. But anyways, I'm gonna stop yapping. You guys let me know what you think, and y'all have a blessed day, and peace out and enjoy the music.